Our first guest is going to be at the forefront of all three of these very big battles. He's the chairman of the tax writing House Ways and Means Committee, one of the most powerful people in Congress. He's also a man who brings common sense to the job today, Chairman Jason Smith. Sir, good to have you on.
It's great to be with you, John, as always.
Thank you, sir. We've been doing some reporting along with AMAC and others to highlight this little ruse that the Biden-Harris administration did a couple years ago. They took some money from Medicare, spent it on green energy stuff. Now, all of a sudden, we discover it's going to result in a massive increase in Part D premiums for Medicare recipients. Joe Biden tried to hide it from the election, put some $5 billion of subsidies just to keep the increases past the election. I know you're on top of this case. How do we fix this, and how bad was the Biden cover-up?
John, you're exactly right. We've seen a lot of Biden cover-ups, as you have reported. But let's just say this. We saw the Biden-Harris administration raid Medicare in the hundreds of billions of dollars in what they refer to as the Inflation Reduction Act. I call it the Inflation Expansion Act. And inflation's only gone up since they passed that legislation. But what they did, they put measures in place raiding Medicare, and now who's going to pay? Seniors are going to pay with higher premiums. But you know what? They tried to hide it before the election. They put through $5 billion, $5+ billion to insurance companies to prevent those premiums to go up before the election. The election's over with. Now the seniors are going to see the real damage that the Biden-Harris administration has done to their pocketbooks.
Yes, and the Congressional Budget Office, their report suggests that this cost-shifting policy will push Medicare costs directly onto taxpayers. So many critics argue that the recent Medicare cost reduction measures were really aimed at election year gains, but they undermine the Medicare's fiscal stability. So my question, sir, is how does the next administration regain the trust of seniors and the trust that they have in the Medicare system?
I think if you look, seniors do trust the incoming president, the 47th president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, because he's been there before. And we saw that whenever he was in the White House, he protect and preserve Social Security and Medicare. He campaigned on that. He follows through on his campaign promises, unlike a lot of other politicians that I've served with. And I am so excited about his opportunity, and I'm so excited about his cabinet that he's creating. He is announcing and appointing stellar individuals that's going to make America even greater than it has ever been.
Yeah. Sir, as you begin,
I want to talk.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. No, I wanted to talk a little about Social Security benefits and whether those benefits, they are subject to federal income tax, based on your income. But the income thresholds are quite low. For example, as low as $32,000, $25,000 if you're single. My question really is for those who are living on fixed incomes, they're saying the income thresholds should be increased, or we should eliminate altogether taxation on Social Security benefits. Your thoughts?
For one, we'll be using reconciliation to extend Trump's tax cuts to make sure that they don't expire, and also to address other tax provisions that President Trump campaigned on, like no tax on tips. In regards to the Social Security tax, it cannot be in reconciliation under the law. Social Security is not allowed to be there. However, I believe that we can definitely help seniors with their taxes. So we can use the tax code in a way to help reduce the taxes that seniors pay, because what you're talking about is exactly right. Seniors have not seen any increase on the thresholds for their taxation. In the early 1980s, it was $25,000 per person, $32,000 for a married couple. There was a marriage penalty. In fact, that has not changed in 40 years. Inflation has gone up a lot in 40 years. So we're going to have to figure out ways of helping address and help those seniors who have been wrongfully served for 40 years.
So you mentioned something important. You're going to try to tackle some of this in reconciliation. Does that reconciliation occur in December, even before President Trump takes office, or do you do it after the 47th president is on the job?
John, we've been working since April to prepare for this time. I was crucified by the press saying, why are you doing these tax teams that are focused on reconciliation and a trifecta government? It's because I believe that Donald Trump would win. I believe that the Republicans would win the House, and I believe that Republicans would win the Senate. And we needed to be prepared to govern. I'll tell you, the Ways and Means Committee is ready on day one in the next Congress, but we're going to continue to work the next 2 months to make sure all of our ducks in a row. Of course, there's a process that it has to pass a budget resolution first. That's another committee. But the Ways and Means Committee, I can tell you, is ready to follow lockstep and key to make sure that we make this economy turn into a thriving, raging engine like the best economy in my lifetime when Donald Trump was last president.
Yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm. You know, just last evening, I was speaking with a gentleman at a restaurant. He said, I voted Donald J. Trump because of the no tax on tips. Very, very popular among so many Americans. What needs to happen before, those who are earning income via tips, before they can see no tax on tips? How soon do you think that'll become a reality?
It's whenever we pass our tax legislation. I have said that there will not be a tax bill that will leave the House of Representatives that does not have that no tax on tips. It's in the Republican Party platform. It's a big priority of President Trump, and it will be in the tax bill when it comes out of the House the early part of next year.
And then I know you touched on this, sir, but the Trump tax cuts, they're not in danger of expiring. You're going to make sure that those get extended into the future, right?
I will not rest, John. I will not allow a $7 trillion tax increase on small businesses. Every single American, John, will face a tax increase if Congress does not do their job. And I'm not going to allow that to happen under my watch.
Yeah, very important stuff. Good stuff indeed.
Yeah, and a lot of Americans are really concerned about transparency. They see how the left has been spending taxpayer dollars on nonsensical things. What do you think should be done to really provide adequate transparency to Americans in this next administration?
The more transparency in government, the better. I'm so excited about what President Trump has done, putting Elon Musk and Vivek in charge of looking at government waste and ripping it out. It's good to have people outside of government to come in, successful people outside of government to get rid of waste. In our country, we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. If you just look at how the GDP has increased in spending over the last several years, it's truly a spending problem. Our revenues have continued to increase and have stayed stable where it's always been in our country's GDP's ratio.
Yeah, and getting that under control is going to be one of the exciting. The economy will explode when that is achieved. I know you're determined to get there. I want to ask about one other big issue that I think you have spent a lot of time on, and I think a lot of Americans are wondering, where does it go? There's a lot of money that Biden appropriated in all these different massive spending bills. It hasn't all been spent. I don't think they got enough time, and though the Democrats will try to spend like drunken sailors. Is there an opportunity to claw back some money and take that money, put it towards Social Security and Medicare safeness or other things to reclaim it for the taxpayer before it gets wasted?
We absolutely need to rescind a lot of these slush funds that was made forward by the Inflation Reduction Act and also the American Rescue Plan.
Right.
That the money is out there. We need to bring it back and give it and pay off debt, pay off deficits, give it back to people in regards to less taxes that they're going to be paying the government.
Yeah, that's going to be a welcome moment. Going to be a welcome moment.
And when you say giving it to less people, a lot of Americans are concerned about the number of illegals entering the U.S. and whether or not they will have access to Medicare and Social Security benefits. Is that a real concern?
It's a real concern of just the disaster that we have seen at the southern border because of the Biden-Harris administration. I am so excited to see my good friend, Governor Kristi Noem, to be named as the Secretary of Homeland Security. She's done a wonderful job in her state of South Dakota. She is going to do an incredible job at making sure that the Secret Service is protecting our president, making sure our border is controlled, and making sure that the laws are enforced. Unfortunately, the current administration has not been enforcing any of the laws. And we also need to make sure that tax dollars are not going for illegal immigrants. We should have tax dollars being priorities of U.S. citizens, not non-citizens.
Yeah, such a novel and great idea. It used to be that way. Sir, I was in a Uber ride the other day in Arizona, and the driver, her name was Karen, and she just wanted me to let you know how proud she was that you stood with those IRS whistleblowers and you got the truth out about the Biden family corruption case. That's a personal thank you from an Uber driver in Arizona. We thank you every time you come on the show. It's always great to have you on, sir.
Thank you, John. It's just about good government and making sure people's held accountable. Appreciate your reporting.
You did a lot about to make that certain. All right. Great to have you on, sir.